before I hand it off to him, I have one announcement. At 7, there is a BOF in the room next door. It's a OSGI en route BOF, but all OSGI heads are welcome. We're going to discuss all kinds of things related to OSGI. So please head over at 7 for the BOF. Over to you.
Thanks, Anish. So I'm Satyadeep Maheshwari, working as a computer scientist with Adobe Connect for the past 5.5 years. And the topic of my presentation is robust collaboration services with OSGI. So basically, how many of you have used Adobe Connect? Okay, good. 3, 4. So prior to Adobe, I was working with Oracle. Let me just move to that slide actually. So I was working with Oracle, and I have a couple of patents under my name, and I have been involved with the adoption of OSGI framework in a couple of Adobe products, Adobe Connect and Adobe Social. And generally I have been working in the area of collaboration softwares in Connect. So before getting on to how OSGI is being used in Connect, to set a context, let me just give you a brief background of Connect. So Connect, quoting from adobe.com, so it is a web conferencing platform for web meetings, e-learning and webinars. So it powers various mission critical web conferencing solutions, and many enterprise level companies are users of Adobe Connect, including US Department of Defense. So they conduct their online meetings in some cases on Connect. So now web conferencing, as you all know, is something in which mission criticality is very important. It has to be in a constant uptime because a downtime is going to cost heavily. I'll cite a couple of examples which make you realize that how critical it is for Connect to be in a constant state of availability. Let's say there is a military war room in progress over a Connect meeting. So as I said, like US Department of Defense is a user of Connect meeting, so it can be a very realistic scenario. And they are making some active wartime decisions, maybe some strategic decisions over Connect, and suddenly the meeting room goes down, it crashes. So in the worst case, it could even be a matter of life or death. So you see that how important that we have the system up and running. Then there is a different contrasting example, but tries to emphasize the same point. Let's say you have an online marketing webinar on a conferencing solution like Connect. For example, there is a marketing webinar for some new product launch, for example, a next generation iPhone launch or something similar. Now when this webinar is in progress, people from all over the world are eagerly awaiting and seeing what is happening in the webinar, and suddenly the system goes down again. This is going to be a great loss of brand name and ultimately revenue. So this is another example, and one of the many which we have faced, in which we have to constantly guarantee that the system is always available. So how do we address this problem? One way of looking at it is that if we can isolate the points of failure, so that when a part of the system fails, it should not happen that the whole system fails. Only the part, and the other parts which are directly related to it should fail. It's like dividing the risk in smaller sized chunks. People generally do not mind that much when the part of the system is down, because they can either they are not using that part of the system, or they are if they are using the other part of the system is still functional, so they can just use that part. So this is something like, as the slide shows, that we try to divide the risk in a smaller size chunk, not putting all the bags in a common basket. So to emphasize it, let me just take you to the Connect meeting room, how it looks like. So this is a Connect meeting room, wherein there are various pods. For example, I can share my screen, I can start my webcam and have an online video broadcast of mine. Then there is the attendee pod, in which I can see the users who are attending this meeting. Then there is this chat pod, in which I can send chat messages to generally everyone or private chat messages to somebody. So these are like, why I wanted to show this is that it has different components, and like if my chat component fails, but the other components continue to work, so then the experience is not as worse as the whole system failing as it is. So let me get back to the slide. Okay, so emphasizing it with a slide, let's say this is my meeting room, it has several components, the chat, Q&A pod, then the audio conference, share pod, and it's running fine and everybody is happy. But suddenly what happens is that the whole system goes down, so everybody is angry. So we want to prevent this. So for preventing this, if only the Q&A component went down, so some people would obviously be angry because they were using it, but others who were not using it are not affected, and others, some of them who were using it can now, instead of using the Q&A pod, they can just go to some other pod, for example the chat pod, or they can talk on the audio conference line in order to do whatever they were doing. So this is just to emphasize how isolating points of failure could help us out. Now there is another aspect of things for a software like Connect. So in Connect we have integration with quite a lot of third-party providers. For example, for audio conferencing, we integrate with various audio conferencing services. Then we integrate with CDNs. So there are so many components, and all these components are like they are in a state of flux. So like any software is always in a state of evolution. So there are bug fixes, configuration changes, which keep on happening. So if I can do those changes, incorporate those changes in my software in such a way that I don't want to take the system down, but do it on the fly. For example, if I want to update the configuration of some particular component of Connect, if I can just do it and keep the system up and running, so that would be really great. So this is another aspect which made us to think that a monolithic architecture is something which does not suit us at all. So obviously the choice that comes forward is the OSGI based architecture for Connect. So we are using Apache Felix, which is an implementation of OSGI specification, and I personally find it quite easy to use, and it has a very intuitive web console for management. So as you would be knowing, the obvious advantages of OSGI are like you can plug in and plug out services on the run, you can update configurations on the fly, and then when you do development based on an OSGI based framework, so you inherently think in terms of modules and services and dependencies. So that simplifies a lot of complexity and makes things a lot more modular and easier to develop. And then there is the advantage of specifying version dependencies. Again, as I said, that we have dependencies on several third-party APIs endpoints, for example, for conferencing service providers. So because of versioning dependency help in an OSGI framework, I can easily specify which version of API I rely on, or which version range I rely on. So now moving to a specific example of where we are leveraging OSGI framework is the audio conferencing integration. So generally when you have a web meeting, there are two parts to it. One is the audio part, you generally join on your phone, dial in and join an audio conference, and the other part is the visual part, the meeting room in which you generally share something or have a video broadcast or chat. So these two parts are something which we have tried to integrate in Connect. So for the audio conferencing, you generally use services of providers like Intercall or Premier Global or Vodafone or something similar. So these service providers provide API endpoints using which I can control an audio conference from my meeting room. For example, from within my meeting room, I can start an audio conference, dial out users, and record a meeting and that sort of stuff. I'll just show it how it actually happens. So this is my audio meeting, and for demo purposes, I'll use a soft phone. So what I do is I say start meeting audio, and I'll dial into this meeting room.
And then press the pound key. Thank you. Press 1 to accept. Hit recording. Press your message has been saved. You are currently the only person in this conference.
So as you see, when I dialed from my phone, I became immediately my phone user has become visible over here. So this user is actually the phone user. So I can control this user. For example, I can select this user and say that mute this user or put this user on hold or something similar. So all these controls are available from the UI for controlling an audio conference. So if I say stop meeting audio and I see that my phone has been disconnected, the call has ended. So how it actually happens behind the scenes is, let me just get back to the presentation. We have a telephony service. We have a telephony service container which has adapters in it. So the adapter is something which communicates with the web service endpoint. So for example, when I am running a conference which is running on Premier Global, so they have a web service endpoint on which I can invoke their REST API commands. Let's say I can call start conference, stop conference. Those sort of commands I can invoke on their REST API. But each conferencing provider has its own set of APIs. Like Intercall has its own API, while Vodafone has its own API. So we have written adapters for those, for each of those providers. So those adapters implement a common interface, which is the telephony adapter interface, in which there are methods like start conference, stop conference, which are invoked by the meeting room. So you can consider this CPMC and FMS as a Connect meeting room. So it is a Flash based application. So that's why the meeting client and the Flash media server. So let's say when I say start audio conference from a meeting room, just as I did in the meeting room in the demo. So it sends a command to the telephony service to start the audio conference. So then it forwards it to the adapter. The adapter knows that it has to start an audio conference on a bridge like Intercall. So it converts it into a REST based request for Intercall and invokes it on the conferencing bridge. So this is how the architecture is. Now consider that this green circle is the telephony service, and I have integrated with 4 different providers. So this bridge 1, bridge 2, bridge 3, bridge 4 are all different providers, and they have their corresponding adapters in them. Now let's say someday some configuration of bridge 1 changed. Let's say its credential changed or its API version changed or something similar happened. So how do I address it? Now I have to make changes in my adapter A1 so that I am able to still communicate with the bridge. In order to do that, I would have to bring my whole system down, because I have a monolithic non-OSGI based deployment. So there is no other way of upgrading A1. In contrast to this, let's say I had an OSGI based deployment. So now things are simpler, because if the bridge 1 goes down, I just can take out A1, which is now a bundle for me in the OSGI container. So I can just take down that bundle, change it, whatever changes I have to make in it, and then just upload that bundle again and restart it. So other conferences which were running on other bridges using the other adapters are not impacted at all. And you can see that this is just 4 adapters. In Connect, we have integrations with maybe 10 or 15 different conferencing providers. So this problem grows exponentially. One provider or other always keeps on changing. Some configuration change happens, or some REST endpoint changes. So it becomes really tough to manage it unless we have this modular kind of an architecture. So if I show you the Felix console, herein we have the adapters as individual bundles. So you see this Intercall telephony service, the PGI telephony service. So these are like individual bundles now, and I can just restart them, stop them for making any changes in them. And the configuration changes are still easier, because using the config admin facility, I can just change the configurations on the fly, and the system is always running. There is no need to take the system down. So let's see how it has been implemented. So as I mentioned, there is a telephony adapter interface which is implemented by all the telephony adapter concrete implementations. So all these are like different provider specific implementations. This might be for Intercall, this might be for some other Premier. So all these implement this telephony adapter interface. Telephony adapter is bundled into an API bundle and uploaded into the OSGI container. Now, and the individual telephony adapter implementations are again OSGI bundles, which are again present in the container. Now, there is a telephony manager service which acts like a container of these telephony adapter implementations. So, as I have depicted in the diagram, there is an optional multiple reference cardinality between the telephony adapter service and the telephony manager service. So, what happens is that whenever a telephony adapter implementation comes up, so because of this optional multiple cardinality, it invokes a bind method on the telephony manager service and it tells that I am up. So, telephony manager retains a map in which there is a key value relationship between, and the key is the telephony adapter's name, and the value is actually the instance of the telephony adapter. So, as a meeting room, if I want to invoke any telephony adapter implementation, I just call my telephony manager that okay, I want to start a conference on Intercall. So, I specify Intercall, it returns me an instance of the telephony adapter implementation for Intercall, and then I can invoke methods whichever I want on it. And because of the OSGI framework, this is like out of the box for us, because the mechanism of bringing up services and those getting registered with telephony manager all happens by itself. So, we need not bother about it. We just stop the bundle and it goes away from the container map, and when we bring it up, it is again registered. Asynchronous workflows. So, this is another example where we are leveraging a lot from the OSGI framework in Connect. Asynchronous workflow, as you know, are like when the things do not happen a single thread. Like I place a request and the response is not immediate, it comes after some time in the form of an event. So, for this we are using the event admin service provided by OSGI. So, since I am talking in detail about the telephony integration in Connect, so I would just demonstrate how it is being done for telephony audio integration. So, I have my Connect meeting room, there is a telephony service and an adapter loaded in it, and there is a CSP endpoint. So, generally what happens is that when I say start conference from my meeting room, it forwards it to the adapter so that it can invoke the start conference REST API on the conferencing endpoint, and it says start conference. And the bridge just acknowledges it. It says that okay, I have got the request to start a conference, but it is not actually started at that point. It has just acknowledged. The reason for that may be that starting an audio conference needs some background processing to be done, and it takes some time. So, after all that has been done, it makes a callback to us that okay, now your conference is started. So, it sends an event to us which is received by the adapter, and then this adapter again forwards it to the Connect meeting room so that we can update our UI and show it that the conference is already started. So, for this we are using the event admin service provided by OSGI. So, I have just created a small demo which demonstrates how we use it. So, in a meeting room, I have this shared pod which is going to show the events which I throw at it, and this is I've just created a test page where I can generate events. So, generally the events would be generated by a conferencing service bridge, but in this case I will just generate the events myself for demo purposes. So, let us say I say that for conference 1001 there is a user who left the conference. So, if I submit it, you see that in the meeting room there that event has been received and it is being printed over there. So, in ideal cases it actually is displayed in the attendee pod when the user leaves and the user is removed from over here. Okay, going back to So how it has been implemented? So for receiving the callbacks from an external conferencing service provider, I need a callback servlet, an endpoint which they can invoke. So there is this callback servlet on which the conferencing service providers can throw out events. So the callback servlet, when invoked, has a reference to the event admin service in it. So event admin service helps you to publish event against a particular topic. So let's say when I receive an external callback from any CSP provider, it sends a posts an async event to the event admin service. And this event is posted against a particular topic. That topic is usually the conference, the unique conference ID for which that event happened. For example, in my audio conference, some user joined. So there is a user joined event for that conference ID. So that event is sent to published on the event admin service. Now the event admin service, there are various event handlers which are listening on their individual topics. So for example, meeting room 1, which has conference 1 in progress, is listening to event handler 1. Similar, it has an event handler 1 which is listening to topic 1. Similarly for other meeting rooms. So once the event is published against a topic, it is handled by the appropriate event handler. For example, if it was for topic 1, which belonged to conference 1, so event handler 1's handle event gets invoked and it does the appropriate processing, whatever needs to be done. So generally, the processing that has to be done is that it has to send an event to the meeting room via RTMP connection. So there is a persistent RTMP connection between the meeting room and the event handler, which is the specific event handler for that meeting room, and on that RTMP connection, that event is relayed to the meeting room so that it can update its state and display it in the UI. So generally, audio conference is just one case. There are several other places where we can leverage OSGI. We are in the process of doing that, but most of it is in conceptual state right now. So if I show you a Connect web application, so herein there are, in Connect as a product is just not meetings, there are several other things. For example, you can create content, you can create trainings, seminars, event management, then there is reporting system, and then there's the administration for doing the administrative tasks. And each of these are like individual sub-products in themselves. For example, my meeting workflows would be totally different from what my event workflows would be. For a meeting, it would be as simple as just scheduling a meeting and sending out the invites to the attendees. But for something like event management, it could be a full-fledged marketing campaign in which I send out event invites. Then I have a registration system for registering users, approving, denying registrations, and then after the event, I can do campaign tracking and generate leads and that sort of stuff. So since these are like totally different workflows, so we can have separate individual bundles for them. For example, event registration could be a separate bundle, or in fact a bunch of bundles. Meeting scheduling can be a separate one. Similarly, training management, and all these rely on a persistent service for persisting data somewhere in some data store. So, and all of this is encapsulated within OSGI container. So the advantage of this is that, as we saw for the audio integration, that I can upgrade individual components and change the configurations on the fly and so on. So to conclude, since the main theme of this presentation was using OSGI in a collaboration environment, I have a small demo wherein within a meeting room I'll demonstrate how OSGI is being used. So let's say this is my meeting in which you see there are two video broadcasts which are going on. So one is the Mickey Mouse broadcast and the other is this Pink Panther. So let me just resume it. Okay. So some of you would be more interested in watching Mickey Mouse, others would be more interested in watching Pink Panther. So let's say there was some problem with the Pink Panther service and I wanted to upgrade it. So what I would do if I had an OSGI based deployment is that I would just go to my USGI console and see where my Pink Panther service is. So this is my awesome Pink Panther service. So I just stop it. So what happens is that this is gone. But the people who are watching Mickey Mouse, they are not impacted at all. They can just keep on enjoying it. And so after some time, let's say my Pink Panther service was repaired, it was brought back, so I can just restart it using my USGI console, and it's back again. So I can view it. Now same thing can happen for the other service as well. For example, this time it's the time to upgrade Mickey Mouse, so I'll just stop this one. This is gone, but my Pink Panther is still playing, and I can restart it, so it should be back, hopefully. Yeah. So this way it helps us to isolate points of failure, upgrades, configuration changes, so that we can keep the system, the show up and running one way or the other. So that's what I had to say. Any questions?
I have one, not directly related to what you talked about, but you mentioned that you use REST API to contact to the bridge providers API, and they do callbacks to you, right? What technology do they use to call back? Is it WebSockets or something else?
Generally it is SOAP or REST API call. Generally that's what I've seen. In case of sockets, there is no need for callback actually, because for some of the providers we maintain a persistent socket connection, so they just push the events over that, so they do not need to make a callback to us.
So it's a straight TCP/IP, not HTTP.
Right. Yes.
Any other questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.